Now let's take a look at using a web inspector in practice to work with a little bit of basic JavaScript. So here I have the scratchpad.html file from exercise files. As you can see, this is a very exciting HTML document with a whole lot going on, lots of interactivity. But if I open up the developer tools, which I can do here, or I'm going to use a lot the keyboard shortcut Command-Option-I. That opens up the developer tools. And I'm here on the JavaScript console over here on the right. So this console will show me things like JavaScript errors, anything that's going wrong on the page. It will also show things like resources like images and other things that have not loaded. But it lets me do things like execute JavaScript. So I can do things like type in 4 plus 4, hit return, and I get back the answer. So it's immediately executing JavaScript code right there for me. I can also do things like inspect currently defined variables. Now, this page, if we take a look at its actual contents, right here in Text Wrangler, I can see the contents of this file, and there is really nothing going on here. I just have this script tag down here with a use strict string that keeps this block of JavaScript executing in strict mode, which will help me avoid errors. So there's not much going on here. I'll switch back to the browser. So despite the fact that there is no JavaScript really defined in that file, I can still look at global JavaScript objects as an example. So the window global, it's an object that's just built into JavaScript. It's always defined. I can type its name and hit return, and there I can see various things about it. In fact, there's a lot because it's the global JavaScript object when you're executing in a web browser. So that's a little overwhelming just opening this thing up and inspecting its whole contents. But one thing that's really nice is if I type the name and then type a dot, I can start to look at individual properties within that. And if I'm continuing down the tree of globals, I can hit another dot and get even more stuff. And this will work for many of your defined objects and various things that you've written in your code. Likewise, document, that's another one that you'll work with a lot when you're writing your own JavaScript. And you can see lots of properties contained therein as well. But I can also define my own stuff. So if I want to, say, create a variable, let's make a variable called x, and we'll set it to the number 5. And now, anytime after that I type x, I get back 5. And that will stay the case until I reload whatever I'm working on. Now if I type x, I get a reference error because I haven't defined it anymore. So let's reload again. I can also write functions. So let's create a quick function called talking dog. And if you want a line break in the inspector, you can type shift return. So I'm just going to have this fake talking dog say woof woof. Shift return again. I can close the function. And now I just hit a regular return, and that executes what I've just done. So I get my return value here, which is undefined. But then if I type talking dog like this, I get to see what the actual variable is. So this is my function. It shows me its definition. If I want to execute the function, I need to type it out and include the parentheses afterwards. Woof woof. So you can see that you can execute JavaScript here in the console, which is not the most interesting thing in the world, but it is very useful at times. One more thing I'll mention is that you can type clear, and that will clear out your console. It doesn't change what variables you've defined, so if I type talking dog again, you can see that it starts to autocomplete. If I want to empty this entirely, I need to reload the page. These lines like clear and so forth are defined as part of the tool's console API, it's called. And for the web browser and console that you're using, you should have a pretty complete set these days of the same functions that work in all the various browsers' developer tools. So just type in your browser name, console API into your favorite search engine, and you should get back the set of commands that will work for you. The only other one that I want to mention that works in pretty much every console is console log. So let's take a look at that. Back here in the scratchpad, I'm going to insert into my script block console.log. I have a message for you. Save the file, and I'll switch back to my browser again. And now if I reload, here it is. Here's my message, and I can see where it came from. And indeed, if I click it, that opens up my sources pane in the web developer tools. and I can see right where I defined that line in my JavaScript. So this is really useful when you're working on fixing problems and just trying to get some introspection into what you're doing in your JavaScript code. Being able to type a variable name in there or just pass in a message, different things to tell you the state of what's happening is something you will be doing all the time, and you're going to see a lot of that in this course. So that's a quick overview of some of the things that you can do with a JavaScript console.